and Councilman Cyril Johnson. Do we have Cyril Jefferson, and do we have Councilman Tyrone Johnson on the line? All right, I guess not. But we do have a quorum, so we will get started. All right, the first item on the list is 2023-97, an update on the homeless services of Guilford County Continuum of Care.
They should be coming in remotely.
They are remote?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hello.
Who's speaking for this?
Hello. Can you hear? Can you hear me? Hello. Hello.
I hear you, Dr. Palmer. What if they can
Okay.
hear us?
Okay.
Pamela?
Yes.
All right, thank you. We're turning the floor over to you.
Okay. Hi, I'm Pamela Palmer, and I am the board chair for the Guilford County Continuum of Care. And I'm joined by Brian Hahn, who is the Executive Director of Partners Ending Homelessness. And they are considered the administrative agent for the Continuum of Care for Guilford County. And Brian is going to give you an update on the work of the COC. And then I'm going to give just a brief just follow up to the last presentation that we did in reference to the city of Greensboro and their exploration of separating from the Guilford County COC. Brian.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you again for having me and Dr. Palmer give an update to this committee. We really appreciate this opportunity and your support. I'll be fairly brief. One of the things that I think is important to note is as we're preparing for the winter sheltering operation in the midst of COVID, I lead a weekly COVID-19 response task force that's frankly been me, gosh, since middle of March. And one of the things that we do is we check in on what we call our bed utilization numbers. It's just important for you to know that most of our shelters are operating at or below about 50% capacity. Currently, it's about, as an aggregate, 52% countywide. What that means is they've done a masterful job of responding to COVID to do the social distancing, to have different barriers, masking. We're working closely with the Guilford County Public Health Department in testing everyone that's coming into our shelter system. But we're also concerned as we go into winter about how we're basically at capacity with our beds based on this reduction in our operations. And so what we're trying to do is come up with some strategies around expanding beds as best as we can and moving people into housing out of shelter as best as we can. So that is something we're pretty focused on as we prepare for the winter. We've got these great partners working collaboratively and together. And of course, the county has been really helpful for us. So I just think it's important for you to know that. I'll just give you some numbers specific to High Point. Open Door Ministries currently has 19 beds in use of a total of 68. That's 28%. Salvation Army of High Point. This is actually they're a little bit higher because of the families. They have 23 beds in use out of 26, so that's 88%. We're thrilled with that number. And then let's see here, make sure I've got all my, and then Leslie's House, which is single women over at West End Ministries, is 14 beds in use out of 22, that's 64%. So you can see they're trying really hard to get above that 50% threshold if they can. So I think that's an important update. Again, I'm appreciative of Michelle McNair's participation, city staff. She's a regular contributing member of our task force. And I think with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Palmer regarding other matters concerning the continuum of care.
Are there any questions related to what Brian shared? Is this an appropriate time, Chairman, to invite questions related to those items?
Any questions? We don't have any. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm gonna, when we met with you last, one of the very last things I shared was we talked about the impact of a possible separation of the city of Greensboro from the Guilford County Continuum of Care. We also have, we meaning the COC, we have a task force that is set up specifically to pay attention to and to work through what may come as a result of the city of Greensboro exploring that separation. Nina Wilson serves on that task force and is a significant professional in terms of understanding COCs as we have been talking with Guilford County. And so what the task force has been exploring with the county for probably the past, I'm gonna say 3 or 4 weeks, is just how might we be structured, or how might things change or stay the same should the county become the administrative organization of what we call the collaborative applicant, our data system lead, and also our coordinated entry of individuals into services and programs. And so with that, we have had one meeting with the city of Greensboro, some staff and city council in one meeting, and to just kind of bring about some clarification. Again, Nina Wilson was a part of that team, if you will, that went and shared how our COC functions, but also COCs in general. And then later that afternoon, this was last week, later that afternoon, we had a meeting with Guilford County Board of Commissioners, and that is a work group that we are all a part of, again, to explore moving forward, or just kind of managing the way in which we function as we work through the situation with Greensboro. The upside of what it is that we're experiencing is that HUD has identified a technical assistance consultant, and that consultant has already met with staff with the city of Greensboro, and has met with our county work group, that was county commissioners, as well as myself and Brian, to talk to us about the TA and what how it would be facilitated and coordinated. We met the TA consultant, et cetera. And so where we are now is that we are continuing to receive that technical assistance, as well as we are engaging to the degree that we can in dialogue with the city of Greensboro. And I guess a way to sum up where we are is that all of the stakeholders involved, including the city of Greensboro, from what we know at this point through the consultant, is that the desire is for the COC in general to function in a way that is going to best serve homeless individuals in Guilford County. So we are moving forward with a more formal partnership with Guilford County. And we, as a COC, are meeting regularly, as well as we are meeting in called meetings, just to make sure that we are keeping step with what it is that HUD requires of us as we continue to receive technical assistance. And I'll take any questions if there are any.
Oh, Dr. Palmer, this is Councilman Williams. Okay, so just to make sure that I kind of I'm following you here. You're saying that it looks promising as opposed to the separation that was in the past.
I can't really speak to whether it looks promising that they won't continue to pursue separation. But what I can say is that we are now in conversation. There is a way for us to communicate. And I think that way is effective. I think when we are on the other side of this, though, I do believe that we will have a more effective leadership governance entity to serve homeless people through the COC. So I can't really speak for matter of fact what Greensboro is doing, but the sense is from the mediator is that they are open to dialogue and continued discussion in terms of coming to some type of an agreement. I hope that answers your question. I don't want to speak for them.
No, sure.
Mhm.
What is your feel when it comes to the county commissioner and their staff?
I think that that is very positive. The county commissioners have set up a work group with our very own Carvina Foster is a part of that work group from High Point, as well as Justin Conrad, Commissioner Kay Cashin, and Chairman Jeff Phillips. And then also Mr. Marty Lowing, the county manager, is a part of that work group. So all of the decision makers, I would say, or key decision makers are a part of that work group, and we are working together, which is important for me to stress, that we are working together to just make sure that when the dust settles, that we are in a better place.
All right. Thank you. Is there any other questions?
This Councilman Hudson, I'm glad to hear that. I had some concerns with Commissioner Phillips. I know that he's a big proponent of ours, and I was concerned since he's not seeking re-election that there may be some unforeseen changes. Glad to hear it's positive discussions going on still.
Yes, and his days are short. But in our meeting yesterday, we made some decisions that would include him, and that will be coming forth to our COC in our formal meeting. So I'm not at liberty to speak to some of that right now. But we recognize that he is moving on and will not continue to be in that role, but he has committed to see this through while he is.
That's good news.
Dr. Palmer, this is Councilman Jefferson. Thank you and Brian Hahn for coming on and sharing with us today. I'm curious that with everything going on right now, has there been any slack as far as collaboration and working together amongst agencies across cities with all this going on? Have we seen any drop off maybe in some of the functionality that normally takes place between our organizations to ensure that we can serve individuals experiencing homelessness?
Not from where I sit. I'll let Brian also speak to that. I'm not aware if there is. It seems as though our network of organizations have moved forward. We recognize that we've got to manage this issue that we have, but everybody is still working very diligently and very disciplined, I would say. Sometimes we have 2 or 3 meetings a week. Some are scheduled, some are called, and everybody is showing up and engaging in ways that are very helpful to us. In particular, your 2 staff, Nina Wilson and Michelle McNair, we're all working together to make sure that services are not interrupted, and everybody is contributing in a way to ensure that that does not happen. I do not see that, but I'll let Brian speak to that because he is engaged a little bit more in the day-to-day.
Yeah, just to follow up with Dr. Palmer, Councilman Jefferson, that's a great question. I have been quite pleased and impressed with the level of engagement of the COC, both at the membership and board meeting level. Dr. Palmer's chairing this Stronger Together task force. We had excellent attendance. I already mentioned the COVID-19 response task force. there is this real sense of unity and cohesion and collaboration, I would say, amongst the majority of the COC, the way the High Point agencies work together. And I'll even go far as to say there is sometimes the Greensboro witnesses some of the way how well High Point works together. And so the cohesion and the unity is pretty impressive. So I think that's our task. You know, Dr. Palmer and I have shared that a few times, that our task is to continue to facilitate and nurture that unity as we bring these items to both our board and membership, and as the county continues to be a growing and stronger partner with us.
And as well, I would say, again, you know, not to just kind of, I guess, beat a dead horse, but the city of High Point has been instrumental in that. And I want to make sure that council is aware that there is quite a bit of heavy lifting that we have had to do, and also manage the work that we've extra work towards dealing with the issue with Greensboro. And it has significantly, time after time, been the city of High Point that has shown up and been a part of us being able to move forward.
That's good to hear.
Awesome. Just one more question. With some of, at least what I think, with some of what was shared today, with the work of the consultant being done, and it sounds like there might be a shifting in at least the scope of what's done, so that the purview of what the county does expands. Can you state plainly what some of those changes might mean for our communities at large, and if those changes have an impact on how the city of High Point continues to support these efforts?
So I can't speak, I think you said plainly, but I'm not in a position to do that today. But what I will say is that there is quite a bit of opportunity with the county being involved. There's an opportunity for us to have a more broad plan for homelessness and addressing homelessness. There's an opportunity for us to bridge with that, a focus on affordable housing. So in the work group, there has been quite a bit of conversation about various levels and types of opportunity. And I would just say that the county is committed to exploring mostly everything that we brought to them. They've been open to hearing and wanting to work together to address those. So definitely I can see where there may be some changes on those fronts that I mentioned, but I just don't have anything specific to tell you today. We're not far along yet.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Dr. Palmer and your team. We are very appreciative for the work you're doing. It's very important. And just if you can, just keep us posted via our staff on how we can continue to partner.
Thank you. And thank you for the invitation.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Next up is an update on the CDBG. Turn it over to you, Mike, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I was looking for my technical expert here. Oh, there he is.
We got him. Sure. We got him in. There you go.
Oh, they are, man.
Implanted in.
Oh, man.
Thanks, sir. Gentleman and scholar. Good afternoon, Community Development Committee. Wanted to give you an update on our Community Development Block Grant CV because coronavirus funding. Just as sort of a review, you recall back in June, we did an amendment to the action plan to recognize the funds. And so we're still operating under that now. And also to review all the activities that we undertake have to prevent, prepare for, or respond to through the coronavirus pandemic. So all of the activities we're looking at when we're seeking RFPs and projects, we ask that question is up front. We have to see that. We did see some people, they would take their current program and slap COVID on it and send it to us like, no, that doesn't make it responsive. So we had to go through all that kind of stuff. This is, when we did the amendment, we had a lot of generic, more of a program budget. We didn't have the specific activities. And now that we do, we're actually going to put an ad in the paper just to tell everybody this is what we did with the funds. Now, so we've allocated to date or awarded $354,363. And there's a balance of $198,343 remaining. And that's going to be addressed in another RFP in the near future. And I'll touch on that a little bit more a little later on. This gives you, I'm not going to really get into a lot of detail, but this is more for your reference if you want to look at it later. It just tells you with each project where they are to date, what they do, how much money they spent. A lot of the projects were late getting started because we had some contract rewrites. HUD, this was literally, as they say, building the airplane as you're flying it. And HUD was issuing guidance, updates, and stuff after they told us to go forward. And so we had to go back and make some changes. One of the big things that they were pushing was to avoid a duplication of services. So we had to, because there's a lot of CARES money floating around from different sources. So we had to put some mechanisms in place to make sure that recipients weren't hitting the funds at the same time from different sources. So we had to build in a certification that people weren't doing that. So you can see to date, even with the late start, we've expended $83,738. And again, that's a brief synopsis of each one of the activities.
So the sanitation stations that Hayden Harmon, it says they've not been spent.
But they're up.
You just haven't reimbursed?
She has, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what that means. Okay.
So you can see up there, there's 4 sites that they've put them up. Superior Foods, Helping Hands, West End Ministries, and a Chosen Generation Church. It's off of Brentwood near Fairfield. You can see in the bottom, the ones on the right, you can see people in there. You know, they visit it, they clean them up, they restock them. So you can see that going on. We have not heard any complaints. I think there was an initial complaint before they ever went out there, but since they've been up, we haven't heard anything. In fact, I know we had some folks in West End were very happy to get that. The 2 over here at Superior Foods is actually one for men and one for women. So that seems to have been going pretty well. And of course, we'll keep track of that as we go forward. Another thing that has been of great interest has been emergency assistance for utilities, rent, mortgage, that sort of stuff. We have 3 agencies that receive funding to do that. Housing Consulting Group is offering up to $1,000 in rental mortgage assistance. Piedmont Health Services is offering, I believe, up to $500 for people in their food program. I think they have $16,000 budgeted. HCG has $50,000 budgeted. And Open Door, I think, has $20,000 budgeted. But those programs are all out there, and again, they were late getting started. We're actually planning to prepare sort of a public service announcement so that everybody, just put it out there so everybody can see this is where you need to go to access some of that service.
You actually answered my question.
I forgot to take it off. I'm sorry.
I said, no, you actually answered my question. I was going to ask what was the next step on spreading the word on this, but okay.
Yeah. In fact, I was talking to some of them today about, I don't want to do that. Making sure they had appropriate flyers and stuff so that the word could go forth. There's a couple other agencies that provide this service, but it's not open to the public. It's like, I think Leslie's House is doing something in that regard. You can't walk in and get it. Piedmont Health, again, that's not so much a walk-in. If they already have folks that are in their program, their food program, they have the ability to access that. So we expect, and we expect actually with the remaining funds that we will probably just focus in on those three items: rent, utilities, and mortgage. Last time, the first one was more broad. And so this time we're like, okay, clearly this is the issue. And I don't know if you heard or not, but the president just tweeted today that he's suspended all stimulus talk until after the election. So I think it's going to make it even more pertinent. This is sort of a timeline just to kind of show where we are and as we're going forward. So we're going to probably, like I said, we'll do an RFP for the remaining 198,343. Now, we were just notified a couple of weeks ago that we will receive a second allocation. Now, I told you back in June that there was a second one. We just had no idea what the amount would be. Could be 5,000, it could be, we didn't know. Well, we got actually more the second time than we got the first time. So what we'll be getting is 588,681, is what the letter said. What we're looking at, we're just exploring whether the possibility of doing some kind of a building rehabilitation project that, again, responds, prevents, or prepares for the coronavirus. That could be, it could be an existing facility where we might work with somebody and say, look, let's put a testing station in here, or let's put something here where you can distance somebody, isolate somebody, or something like that. Quite possibly, probably in the homeless arena, but we're still working through that. Feelers, we're talking to different folks, so we're just trying to get feelers on that, but we'll certainly, as we get more information, we'll certainly bring that back to you. But the total of both awards was, as you can see, $1,141,357. So that's a good thing. We just have to put it to good use. So we actually have more in front of us than what we've already expended. Probably, when we did the first RFP, we had like 19 applications. I suspect when we focus it in, we'll probably get 3 or 4. Because there's not that many people that do that. That do rent, utilities, mortgage. Because in that 19, we only had 3 agencies that did that. They did it, that was available to the public. So probably, unless somebody new pops up, it's probably going to be 2 or 3 of those 2. But we'll be getting that out in the not too distant future.
Okay. And I'm sorry, I probably got to go back and take a look. Because I know you said that they pretty much told you to go forward and then kind of explain to you, the restrictions, or.
Oh, you want me to go back? Well,
no, no, you don't have to. But I just wanted to kind of get an idea of if you're going to focus, on those 3 pieces. I guess I just got to wait to see what it looks like.
Well, the beneficiaries would have to be income eligible for CDBG, number 1. Number 2 is we'd have to be able to ascertain that if you were receiving assistance for your October rent or utilities or whatever, we'd have to be able to, you'd have to certify that you didn't get funds from somebody else to do the same thing at the same month, that kind of stuff. different agencies like HCG always has an education component in their program, which is it has a longer term effect because it helps people manage the money more. I think some of the other programs are more kind of, let's put out the fire, you know, but it's, an HCG program is also replicated in Greensboro. You've probably seen it advertised. It's actually the same program. We've actually talked to them about in the next round if they can add the utilities in that so they can offer all three. And they seem to be receptive to doing that.
Any other agencies with that bandwidth that you know of in the city that do?
We'll find out when we
all on one. Just saying.
Well, we'll find out when we advertise. We don't, you know, it's. I can imagine somebody like the United Way might be interested in it. But, you know, before they were pretty much tied up in the other stuff with the county, so that they didn't really participate. Anybody that's providing services to underprivileged folks probably has the capacity to do it. It's really, if you're working with low-income individuals, you have sort of an innate capacity to check the appropriate boxes and make sure you know who you're talking to and all that stuff. And a lot of them are agencies that we've dealt with in the past. But typically the people that we see doing that are in the homeless arena, like Open Door. Housing Consulting Group actually was big in the tornado response in Greensboro. They did a lot of that. So they actually brought that platform over. And that's why they were working with Greensboro and also with us. But there may be other people out there. That's why we advertise, because we don't know who everybody is or who all is willing to do that. Might be the right time for them.
Do we normally put in calls to like maybe local TV stations or something to at least be willing to post that in there? I guess they still do community boards and some of the sort.
Yeah, we can certainly do that. We're not averse to any kind of.
Yeah, because some, they won't.
But what we're doing is working through the other agencies. So.
I mean, just encouraging those agencies.
Yeah. But we don't handle the applications. That's what.
No, of course.
Do. Yeah.
All right. Any other
we'll make
questions?
sure that our electric folks are aware as well. So we have that line of communication open. And I think that's all I got.
I think Councilman Johnson's on the line now. Can you hear us?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. So I'm asking, is there any other member of the committee has any questions for staff?
No, I do not. What part I did hear, I do not have any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Next up is the update on the MWBE. I turn it over to Eric.
You have a question first.
Huh?
Pamela's raised her hand for a question.
Oh, she did. I'm sorry.
Is there a question for me?
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Hello?
Hello? Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. If you got your question, go ahead. You can hear you.
Yes, I am so sorry. There was one thing that I meant to include in our update. Is this an appropriate time or should I wait until the end?
You okay with it? Okay, now you can go right ahead, Dr. Palmer.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much. As a part of our moving forward with the county to advocate for a countywide COC, one of the things that I had intended to inquire about in my update was whether or not the city of High Point would present a resolution as a part of our effort to maintain a countywide COC. And the reason I'm asking today, as opposed to when we give an update at your next meeting, is because the county commissioners meeting is November the 5th. And if we could have that as a part of our work group discussions and also as part of the presentation that Commissioner Phillips will make, that I think would be encouraging for county commissioners.
Okay, that would require a vote from us, so I'll entertain a motion to that effect from any member of the committee. Right. Okay, Dr. Palmer, did you hear that? That's from Randy, our city manager?
I did not hear him. No, I couldn't hear him.
Okay.
Sorry.
Do you want to try to call her offline to?
Just tell her to get whatever suggested resolution wording you like, and we'll pass it.
Okay, if you couldn't hear, he said that if you could get some suggested resolution wording to Mike McNair,
Okay.
then we can prep to do this the last week. The last week of the month. We're having a special meeting anyway,
Okay.
and we can actually do the resolution there.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Sure thing. Thank you, Dr. Palmer. Okay, and we're moving forward with now the update on the MWBE. And I'll turn it over to Assistant City Manager Eric Lempo.
Thank you, sir. This is Eric Olmedo, Assistant City Manager. We wanted to give a few points on the MWBE in the presentation. I don't have a paper copy, so as soon as it comes up, I'll be able to talk to it. But on that first slide, I know we provided a chart that shows, oh, thank you, Michael, that shows some of the other cities in North Carolina, some of the other larger cities, and where they stand on MWBE goals compared to High Point. If you look at the banner across the top, think about those first two columns that say MWBE construction goal and WBE construction goal, and that's minority business enterprise and women business enterprise. Think about those as what's required under state law. As you go to the right with purchase goals and service goals, those take it a step further. And those cities that have those goals have completed what's called a disparity study. So as we go through, you see that Asheville, Cary, Chapel Hill have the same goal as us at 10%. By the way, the goal in High Point was established in 1999. So that is 21 years old at this point. And most of the cities I looked at that had just a straight percentage goal for MB and WB were all established sometime in the 90s. So keep that in mind. As you look at the next three there, Durham, Greensboro, and Greenville, you see that they have varied goals depending on category, and that's an indicator that they have completed at least one disparity study, if not had a disparity study, and then a follow-up and a follow-up. So we know in Greensboro, we know that they completed one just a couple of years ago that laid out these very specific goals by category. And we'll go into how they arrived at that and how it's defensible here in a little bit. Greenville, you see their goals are very specific as well. And then the last four there, Jacksonville through Winston, just have a flat percentage goal for MB construction and WB construction. So I brought up the thought about a disparity study and just wanted to talk a little bit about what a disparity study is, why it's relevant and why it's necessary. It does go back to a Supreme Court case in 1989. That's the city of Richmond, Virginia v. J.A. Croson. It imposed legal requirements on jurisdictions to establish a compelling interest to support the establishment of these very specific MWB goals. So these are studies that are designed to document past discrimination in the awarding of contracts by a particular jurisdiction, as well as in the industry in general. we're not required to have them as a local government, but they do support the constitutionality of having very specific goals. And so that's why some of the cities have done very specific disparity studies. And they evaluate the past contracting practices of a local government. They look at the market area from which the contractors are doing business with the unit, where the contractors are from. And they also look at the availability of qualified MWBE contractors within that market area. So it does get into a lot of detail. The study then analyzes whether there's a statistically significant, I've never been able to say that, disparity between the firms available to those used by the local government attempting to control for race neutral factors such as firm size and experience. And it determines if there is a disparity and if that's evidence of discrimination in contracting. The disparity study also evaluates anecdotal evidence and statistical evidence where available of discrimination in the local marketplace to determine if the governmental unit has been a passive participant in industry-wide discrimination. And they draw this information. They do a very in-depth study using census data, using actual contracting data from the unit being studied, looking at federal studies, public hearings, surveys, and that type of thing. There are a number of private firms that do this type of consulting work. I know that we have seen studies from different cities. They are costly, they are time consuming, and demanding a local government staff, but that's not to say you shouldn't do one. It's just, it's out there. I think the city of Greensboro was about a 3-year endeavor at a cost of about $300,000. We have been approached by this Guilford County is looking at doing one. I know Randy McCaslin has spoken to the county manager, and then our purchasing staff has talked to their purchasing staff about the potential of going in together and doing this type of study. So those are, that's a concept that's out there that we could talk about, or we could talk about perhaps going on our own. I don't think we would have quite the study that Greensboro would have just because of the level of contracting that we do compared to them. Would be a little bit different. I'd also want to bring up this, the North Carolina MWB Coordinators Network. So I was on a school of government class last week about contracting in North Carolina. And the president of this organization, Denisha Harris, who's the purchasing director in Greenville, North Carolina, did a presentation. And I've asked our purchasing staff to go ahead and join this network. This is, they really do a great job of giving purchasing departments or MWB departments, or depending on where it is located in the city, they give the staffs a great ideas about how to engage the minority and women business enterprise community, how to network, how to bring those folks with those businesses into the contracting world for local government. And so I've asked our folks to become involved in this so that we can enhance what we're currently doing. I did give you an executive summary from the Durham study that was done a few years ago. It's about 30 pages. This gives you some idea. I put the links up here for the city of Greensboro, the city of Durham, and the city of Charlotte's. I didn't print them out because they're all over 300 pages. They are very in-depth studies, but I did want to let you have that information if you're interested in looking at the big studies. You can kind of see the methodology that they go through, and the reason why it's defensible, and then also some of the background about how often you have to, you review it, you update it, so that you have a continually defensible plan moving forward. That's what I have today. I'll be happy to take any questions if you have them.
This is Councilman Jefferson. Eric, thank you for for bringing this information. I guess we've had the preliminary conversations with the county staff. You mentioned with county manager and purchasing staff. We wouldn't have any hard details on what our buy-in would be at this point and any timetables or anything like that, right?
I would say not at this point, but Manager McCaslin's coming up.
I don't think that at this point, the county has got firm numbers. They may, or at the time we talked, I'm not sure they had firm numbers. They may at this point. They expected and hoped that their disparity study would be 200,000 or less. They would like us to join. They think that that we can probably get more bang for the buck if we did go in with them. But they expected that our participation would probably be in the $100,000 to $150,000 range. That was from our conversations at that time, and that was probably 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Okay. Okay, awesome.
A study that scale would, and this is Councilman Williams, the study of that scale, we would still be able to break the county down by municipality, right? So far as
They would do, if we went in with the county, they'd do a county study and a city study. Since the consultants would be here doing the same work, so
It would save us some money. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think a big part of it is because they're studying the same market area, so they're really looking at the same firms that would do work for the city of High Point that would do work for the county.
Yeah. And if I'm hearing you correctly, the reason why they have to study both the municipalities sort of separately is because we have our own purchasing history. The county has their own purchasing history, but we have the same market area that has to be whatever.
That's correct.
Evaluated. So, I imagine, do they at least have a timetable on when they think they might be interested in moving forward with it, the county?
they're getting ready to move forward in the next. I'll contact them again, but I think that they probably will not do anything before the election.
Yeah.
But certainly right after the election, I think they're prepared to move, and they expect it to be a year plus.
Yeah, I know without us probably having that information, we wouldn't want to make a recommendation to council, I imagine, without us knowing exactly what our buy-in would be. But if that's, well, our next community development meeting would be in November. If there's a way, I think, to get some more of those details from the county so we can have a little more, I guess, more tangible information, if we're ready in November to even look at that and see where it's at. And then maybe while we're doing that, just for the sake of saving time, if we could have our eye, I know this is a tight year as far as budget, but if we can at least have an eye to try to see where that might come from, so that way we can potentially have that entire conversation at the same time. We can say, well, here's what's expected of us, here's what we can do, then we can consider if we either do want to or don't want to make a recommendation to combine with them.
Councilman Williams again. So I'm hearing county and High Point. That includes Greensboro, right?
That would not include the city of Greensboro. They've already completed their own study.
Okay.
I believe they completed it last year.
Okay, the 3-year. Okay, never mind.
This is Councilman Johnson. I believe I may have heard that time frame. You're going to work on that. I believe Randy said he spoke with them 2 weeks ago. Is that correct?
Yeah, roughly.
Okay, about 2 weeks ago. So hopefully we should know something November. Sometime in November. Is that correct?
Hard to say because the county right now, much different from us, they're right in the middle of their elections. And so you can imagine what that dynamic means for them in making hard decisions about things. But they're hoping that following the election, when the dust sort of settles, they'll be able to know which direction they'll go. And then that will allow us, once they know what they're doing and what they've got their eyes on, it'll allow them to be able to tell us what they would need us to do if we were to join along in that effort. And so that could be November, it could be December, but it's hard to say right now.
And that's exactly, thank you. Councilman Johnson, are you good?
Yes, I'm good. Thank you.
That's kind of what that was gonna lead into my question. Talking about maybe talking about what the next step was in the next committee meeting. I was thinking even if we had to kind of push the date of that meeting a little later, obviously before Thanksgiving, but just a little later to give the staff time and everybody, if that might be something that's feasible, instead of just trying to rush it before we have our first meeting in November. I'll be willing to do that.
I'd propose that, we can reach out to the county and just, kind of firm up their timeline before, and let you know as soon as we can.
Okay.
What I'd be curious, I guess my next question, this is Councilman Jefferson, while we wouldn't have the constitutional substantiation to say, hey, let's move forward with purchasing or service goals until we do this kind of study, would that restrict our ability, though, to look at some other remedies that we've sort of floated out there, such as considering the hiring of a MWBE coordinator? I know at least in the past couple meetings, that's been an idea that's at least been talked about. While I know we couldn't do the total comprehensive program, I guess what I'm just asking is, do we have to wait until the disparity study is completely done before we move forward with making any type of remedies? Or is it, is there a precedent for moving forward with some of that, even while that disparity study is going on?
I would say that's at the council's discretion. I don't think you have to wait for a disparity study to implement interim goals.
Even if we don't do the position, at least continue to monitor the progress. At least in the interim, just monitor the progress of where we are.
And you may recall that our typical reporting period is on a calendar year. So I'm not going to promise on January 2nd, but sometime within probably February, we'll be able to have all the information wrapped up for our 2020 report. So that'll give you a good, we'll bring that back to the council and report on that so we can know what our annual goals met were. Because as you know, we did do our 6-month report that did not include the police department project yet, which had some significant MWB participation. I'm sorry, our stadium project. The 2020 will not have our police department because we don't anticipate that being completed yet, but we can give you a pretty firm number on where we anticipate that project being as well.
Excellent. And that's kind of what I was thinking when we were talking about, whatever restrictions and construction we got going on right now because of COVID, the slowdown, didn't want to say, and also keeping in mind our limits on our budget on the position, on that position creation. And I think once we have more concrete numbers, or even in the interim, then we can kind of rediscuss the position part. All right, are there any other questions from staff remotely or in the room council members for staff remotely or in the room?
Yeah, I've got one more question. It just came to mind. Assistant Manager Mwbe, I don't know if you guys have that information on hand right now, but do we presently have any expectation of our prime contractors to have a certain goal for who they subcontract with in regards to MWB participation?
For who they contract with or what?
Yeah,
level?
so I know that we have our own goal for who we directly contract with, but on some of our bigger projects where, historically, minority and women business enterprises may not be able to take on some of those, generally municipalities may elect to implement a program or strategy in which the prime contractor on something, let's say it's a big firm and they're taking on the big contract, we may require them to have a certain participation metric in regards to MWBE subcontracting.
Right. Well, and as you recall, if it's a project over $300,000, when they bid on the project, they complete an affidavit that says what their intention is. Then, if it's a project where they don't intend to use a subcontractor at all, they don't have to have any MWBE participation. If it's a road project and it's one company that does it, that's not we don't have a quota, in quotes. They show us what they intend to do, and then they report after the project's complete how they performed and which subs they use. So for instance, when we bid out the police department project, Samet came with a very detailed list of the contractors that they intended to use and the MWB participation. As they get into the project, they make every determination they can. They try to work with those that they've identified and that they've already contacted. Now, that's not to say that there isn't a case where a subcontractor that they identified couldn't perform the duty and they had to go to someone else. So basically what they do is the contractor sets out what they determine is their MWBE plan. And then at the end of the project, they report back how they performed.
Okay. Do we have any advanced analytics on some of that? And that I imagine that's not ready for today because this is my first time bringing it up. But is that something that we can go in our system and go and check and be able to see where we are on that?
Yeah, we can definitely, that's how we generate those reports, is that after report that we get from the contractor. So I know, I've already seen the report for, in the police department in particular, that's our largest project that we have going on right now. And the Samet does a really good job of tracking which contractors they use, where they fall in the MWBE spectrum, and then they report back on that. So that's certainly information that is available.
Could we have that maybe, I don't know if it needs to be shared in the meeting. I mean, we could have it shared, but at least for the sake of efficiency, I would love if it could be emailed to all the council. So that way we can have our eyes on it.
Will do.
All right. Any other questions? Tyrone, did I hear you?
No questions, sir. No question.
All right. That's all. Thank you, Eric. All right. That was the last item on the list. So if nothing else, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right.
Second.
All right. So it was